So what I'm going to be showing you here is a miniaturized version of the build process. I have the template printed here on 8.5 by 11 sheets, but obviously your printouts will be much larger on those 24 by 36 sheets. Alright, the first thing you're going to do once you have your printed template is trim off the outside border. Now if your cardboard material is large enough, you can glue down that trimmed template onto your material directly. If your material isn't big enough, what you can do is trim out the individual pieces and glue those individual pieces down in a way that fits onto your material. So here you can see I've got my cardboard material. I'm going to use a glue stick. You don't need a lot. I'm going to use this glue stick to adhere the template to the cardboard. Again, you don't need a lot because you're going to be removing this a little bit later once the parts are assembled. But you need just enough to keep it in place as you're cutting the pieces out. Now you'll notice here I didn't have enough cardboard to have the full sheets, so I've cut out the individual pieces and glued them and arranged them in a way that fits onto my material. So with my pieces laid out and my template glued down, I'll go ahead and cut out the individual pieces. Using a straight edge and a box cutter or an X-Acto knife, go ahead and with a little more precision now, go around and cut each of the individual pieces out, following the solid lines. You'll notice here the hood, number 2, only cut out the outside perimeter. You don't need to cut the solid lines that are inset there. You'll see that also in the next scene when I show the individual pieces. For pieces 6 and 7, both L and R, they're attached just to allow for fewer cuts. So just take a little bit of extra time, cut that curve out, and you can separate those components. So here you can see all of the pieces laid out and cut out. First you have the front bumper and grille. Piece number 2 is the hood. Number 3 is the roof and front windshield. Number 4 is the rear windshield and trunk lid. Number 5 is the rear bumper. 6 and 7 are those front quarter panel or front fender and the side. Number 8 is the side windows. Number 9 is the rear quarter panel or the rear fender. You also see those gussets cut out that are not numbered. Those will be used as strengthening pieces for different parts of the assembly. The next step in the process is to create the bends along those bend lines. Those dotted lines indicate where those bends will be needed. And it can help to use your straight edge and a knife to score through that top layer. If you're using cardboard, you may not need to score that top layer of paper, but it can help. Now, just a reminder that you're not going to cut out these lines here on the hood. You'll do that later. Now, on piece 8, there is a solid line, and you're going to cut all the way through that on both 8R and 8L. Now, whether you choose to score those dotted lines or not, I would recommend using your straight edge as a guide to help you create a clean, crisp bend along each of those edges. Now it's time to move on to the assembly. We're going to start with the front section. And what I like to do is use masking tape to hold things in place. We'll tape things along the outside edges on the exterior of the costume, and that will allow us to apply glue on the inside edges and corners. Also, it's important to note you'll see these arrows with letters, and those will match up. That is how you know you have your template edges lined up properly, is that those letters and arrows will match up. And again, I'm applying tape to the outside to help form and assemble these pieces. And then I'll go ahead and add glue to the inside edges. I'll want to make sure that I remove the paper template and am actually applying the glue to the cardboard itself rather than to the paper template. So here you can see I've folded back the template just enough so I can get the hot glue in that edge. Then I fold it up, and I will, if it's possible, either reapply the tape to secure it, or if the glue is drying fast enough, I can move on to the next section. So here you can see that front section pretty much complete. We'll come back to it to make a few other modifications, but for now we will set this one aside and start on the next section. Now we'll start with pieces number 3 and 8L and 8R. This is the roof and rear windshield and sides. We'll follow the same process. You can see the letters should match up. We'll go ahead and fold the template back. You can even remove it if you're feeling confident and comfortable with what those pieces are. And then go ahead and glue and tape like we did with the last section. Be sure to take your time as you glue these edges up. You'll notice I didn't use tape when I glued these up, and they didn't line up quite as well as they would have if I had used tape. Now go ahead and grab piece number 4. That's the rear windshield and trunk lid. You're actually going to bend this in the opposite direction, away from the template. It's going to bend upward. And grab that straight edge and get a nice clean bend on both of those. And you're going to follow the same process and glue that in to that assembly. Now we're going to grab pieces 5 and 9L and 9R and finish out this back portion of the car. Now this is another folding edge, and so you want to be careful not to put too much glue or put glue where it's not needed. But go ahead and tape up those pieces, 5 and 9, on both 9L and 9R. And then you can attach those, you can glue those edges and attach it to the rest of the assembly. Feel free to do a bit of a test fit, especially along these edges. You want to make sure you understand where the hinge line is so that you don't put glue in the wrong places. That edge there in front of the hinge, you want to make sure it doesn't have any glue. Also, a quick note, those back angles are not at a perfect 90 degree. They bend outward slightly. So make sure you're following kind of that edge so that it matches up properly with the rest of the template, or excuse me, the rest of the costume. Here you can start to get a sense of how the costume bends. When the child stands up, that rear bumper section folds down and the portion along their back bends upward. And here it is with the rest of the front coming together. Those side panels will attach to their arms. So you won't see me gluing anything here, but you'll have straps that you'll need to attach for the wrist and forearm. And those will be separate from the rest of the costume. Now for these smaller gussets, you want to attach these to that kind of square portion on the side, as well as the angled portion on the kind of where the side view mirrors would go. So glue those in place. That helps reinforce that square portion of the costume so that it's strong and stays in place. With those gussets in place, now we'll move on to the large triangle and go back to that front section, that front assembly that we started with earlier. The gusset, or that triangular piece, will go at the bottom of the front bumper. And that just helps maintain that front angle and gives it a little more structural rigidity. Now, in order to attach the front bumper or front section to the main body, we're going to use tape there along that edge. But we need to make sure that that front section folds down to the outside of that main body, right there where those square sections are. You can see how it bends over and around the outside of that. That's going to be important to allow for those wings to open up for the child's arms when they're in standing mode. Now I'm using masking tape here, but I would actually recommend something a little bit stronger, potentially duct tape. It's going to be a lot more durable as the child transforms back and forth between the different modes. Now make sure that you have the front section folded down when you apply the tape. That will give the proper spacing between the two smaller subassemblies so that it can fold freely when changing between the two different modes. Now when you tape the inside edge, make sure that you fold the front assembly all the way back so that the hood is touching the windshield, and just make sure that things are folding back and forth properly before you secure that inner portion of tape. So now we need to create that opening for the child's head as they transform. So take that hood template and cut off the side edges, and you can mark those lines and cut through that top layer. Now here you want to make sure you have a sharp blade as you cut through so that it's as easy as possible. But with your straight edge, carefully cut along the flap for that opening and cut all the way through from that hinging edge all the way to the front bumper, piece number 1. Now, if you did it like I did and put too much glue along that front edge, you can go back in with your knife and cut that edge so that the flap can open freely for that head opening. And now you can get a sense of the completed build with the front section folding down, with the back section folding back, and the hood flap opening up for that head opening. At this point, you're ready to paint and decorate the costume however you see fit. Please reach out if you have any questions about any other details along the way.